The Marines and the Army's Wildcats were ready to attack the Japanese positions on Peleliu and Angar, but they had to wait almost a week before they could get off the ships. They could only think about how the powerful Tennessee-class battleship, with its impressive battery of 12 14-inch Mark IV guns, kept destroying the island's barrages. For more than 4 days, the Navy had been hitting them hard, clearing bunkers, tunnels, mines, and any other Japanese defenses. Tennessee roared, but Mercy didn't hit her goals with pinpoint precision. When they were told to get ready for battle on September 17, 1944, most of the young men thought there was not a single Japanese soldier left on the island. But they were wrong. Deep in the jungle, the enemy was waiting for them. As the United States got ready to go to war with the Prussian Empire in the 20th century, the U.S. Navy ordered a new class of ships that were based on the New Mexico class. The battleship 1916 was the only name for this design. The Navy General Board wanted to make a battleship that didn't look like most of these warships. This would make it possible to improve the armor guns and power plants. In March 1915, the plan for the Tennessee-class battleship was approved, and work on the first 2 ships began almost right away. These were the U.S. Tennessee and the U.S. California. They were both 600 feet long, 97 feet wide, and 30 feet deep. At full battle load, they moved more than 33,000 long tons. The ships had 4 torpedo bulkheads to protect them from attacks from below and to take in the explosion's pressure and gas. Also, they were made with a clipper bow so they could handle rough seas and cut down on spray. Following this idea, the Tennessee class had a lot of compartments, with over 760 below the waterline and about 180 above it, to reduce the chance of flooding. The ships were powered by turboelectric drives and had 8 boilers that burned oil. 4 3-bladed screws were driven by Westinghouse turboelectric generators and 4 electric motors. The propulsion system made more than 28,000 shaft horsepower. This gave the Tennessee battleships a top speed of 21 knots. At an average speed of 10 knots, the cruise range was 8,000 miles, but it could be increased to over 20,000 miles by adding more fuel. The standard crew was made up of 1026 enlisted men and 57 officers. She also had to be ready to fight and have weapons. Tennessee's main battery consisted of 12 4-triple turrets with 14-inch Mark IV guns. Each barrel could be raised independently, and the turrets could be raised up to 30 degrees for long-range fire. With 1,500-pound armor-piercing shells, the Mark IV guns could shoot up to 35,000 yards, and with a 1,275-pound high-capacity shell, they could shoot up to 36,650 yards. The ship had 14 5-inch guns in its secondary battery. 6 guns were set up to fire forward, 4 were aimed backward, and the other 4 were put in open pivot mounts near the conning tower and the funnels. U.S. Tennessee also had 4 10-inch guns that could be used to shoot down planes and 2 21-inch torpedo tubes with Mark VII Bliss Levitt torpedoes that could travel 12,000 yards. The belt of armor around the ship was 8 to 13 inches thick, and it was almost 18 feet wide. The main belt was topped by 13-foot-long, armored bulkheads that ran across it. The main battery guns had sides that were 10 inches thick, backs that were 9 inches thick, and roofs that were 5 inches thick. The sides of the conning towers were 16 inches thick and the roofs were 6 inches thick. The armored coating on the funnel upticks was 9 inches thick. Her armor made her a strong opponent, which was soon put to the test. Pearl Harbor, Tennessee, was started in April 1919. During the 1920s and 1930s, it took part in many training exercises, including one in early 1941. She was sent to the Pacific when things got tense with the Empire of Japan. Japan got worse, and when they attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, they were in a long battleship fight. During the attack, friendly ships surrounded the Tennessee and did a lot of damage to it. Despite this, the crew moved quickly and manned the anti-aircraft guns to stop the Japanese trading runs. She was attacked twice, but neither bomb went off. Some guns were turned off and small fires started, though. Tennessee lived, and in the months that followed, it was fixed up and made more modern. She was made better by adding an air search radar. fire control radars, stronger anti-aircraft guns, and 114 officers and more than 2,000 men were added to the Army in June 1943. Tennessee joined Task Force 16 to help the Aleutian Islands campaign and get Kiska and Attu back from the Imperial Japanese Navy. He helped with the bombing of Kiska before the invasion and fired 14-inch shells at what looked like an enemy submarine, but it was never confirmed that it sank. Tennessee then talked about the landings of amphibious ships on Little Kiska Island. A few days before the Pacific campaigns, the Japanese had already left the area. In November 1943, the Tennessee got to the Gilbert Islands. As the U.S. Marines moved toward the beachheads, they drove the Japanese back from the beaches. As the Leathernecks fought the enemy on Tarawa, Tennessee and Colorado opened fire on the enemy who was entrenched. This made it possible for the Leathernecks to fight their way ashore. Tennessee left the battle zone at night to stop a sneak attack by a submarine, but the battleship kept shooting at planes and other ships. During the battle, the ship helped the Marines when they asked for it. In early January 1944, it hit a Japanese submarine several times and sank it. Before leaving for the Marshall Islands, Tennessee got a new coat of dazzle camouflage. The USS Tennessee and other ships bombarded the Kwajalein Atoll, destroying pillboxes, underground tunnels, and other fortifications near the beaches. She also sent out her float planes to find more strongholds and accurately shell them, which made it easier for the Marines to get into the jungle. With less resistance from the enemy and the atoll now safe, the Tennessee moved on to the new attack atoll, where she led a preliminary bombardment with other U.S. Navy ships. She used her backup battery to help Marines set up marker buoys for assault boats. The battleship kept firing barrages until February 22, when almost all of the island was still standing. She left a path of destruction that showed off how strong her armor was. In March 1944, the Tennessee was sent to the Bismarck Archipelago to destroy bases of the Japanese in the area. In June 1944, the Battle of Angar took place. When Tennessee got to the Mariana Islands to take part in the Battle of Saipan, the big guns roared again and killed everyone. In most Japanese beach defenses, she destroyed artillery and mortar positions and helped friendly minesweepers clear the way for landing craft. Saipan was now safe for the Marines to take, so the crew of the Tennessee was called to help take Tinian and Guam along with other Navy ships in July. Tennessee fired from a distance of about 2,500 yards, covering the Marines as they got off the ships on the beaches of Tinian, U.S. With a barrage of more than 500 rounds from their main guns, Tennessee and California destroyed the town. This forced the Japanese to fight from their tunnels after a quick refueling. Tennessee went to the Palau Islands to help with Operation Forager and Operation Stalemate. The goal was to take control of the two islands so that the B-24 bombers could use them to attack the Philippines. The famous 1st Division of the Marines was the one that took Peleliu. On the other hand, the Army's 81st Infantry Division, also known as the Wildcats, would capture Angara. On September 16, 1944, the Marines attacked Peleliu to fight Colonel Cuneo Nakagawa's 11,000 men and get closer to winning the war. The first stage was very hard, but the Marines made it through even though they lost a lot of people. The next day, the Wildcats got ready for battle and attacked Angara after the U.S., Tennessee, and Pennsylvania bombed the area first. The Wildcats had more than 10,000 men and 5 destroyers and 4 cruisers. They fought against Lieutenant General Saad in New and Major Ushio Goto's 1,400 soldiers from the 59th Infantry Regiment, 14th Infantry Division. These men had been in the war in Manchuria and were ready to fight to the death to honor the emperor. Before the battle, Major General Paul J. Mueller told his troops, "We are about to take an important strategic area from the Japanese. We have to carry heavy responsibilities. What we do in this battle will be a big part of making our country proud." He put his troops and weapons on the spots where he thought the enemy would land, and then he got ready for the impact as Tennessee's main guns hit the island. The Wildcats got off the boat without any trouble, but they got stuck when they went to the center of the island. The Japanese defenders were outnumbered, but they did everything they could to wipe out the Americans. However, they didn't have enough supplies or people to lead successful attacks. John Walker, a war reporter, later wrote a story for Time magazine. We can hear the boom of the big guns and the sound of the heavy shells ripping through the air on their way to their targets. Back on the beach, we can see bursts of fire and black smoke coming from the warships. Sounds of music, Step Up the Pressure. The island was taken on September 20th, which let Tennessee leave the area and give the U.S. a chance to refuel. The needed airfields were built quickly, but they weren't done in time for the invasion of the Philippines. After the fact, many Army and Marine officers questioned the operation, and some thought it was a waste of American lives. The Wildcats were sent to Palau, however, to help the Marines finish the fight. Before she was sold for scrap in 1959, she fought in the dangerous Gulf, Surigao Strait, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. She is still one of the few U.S. Navy ships and fought in most of the Pacific Wars, from the bombing of Pearl Harbor to the last Japanese defense at